right, so today we're in Love and Torah part 48. I feel like we should just go right to Ecclesiastes to the conclusion of the matter and just wrap it up. No. All right, so part 48, and those of you that know me know I like to go somewhat in order through the scriptures. So being that we're now in the book of Yaakov and James, you know that we're running out of places to go to before we get to Revelation. So we are getting close to the end here. And it's been, I think, a very, very important teaching. We're going to begin in chapter 1, and I'm going to read a couple of verses in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Just a verse here or there. I want you to understand why we're going to read pretty much all 4 of those chapters over the next week or 2 or 3, depending on how fast we do it. And why this is connected to the whole idea of love and Torah. Remember, the love and Torah teaching was about understanding what love has to do with anything. Because after all, you know, the great majority of the mainstream world thinks that it should be, and I don't disagree with them, I just think they don't know what it means, but they think that it should be about love. And I agree wholeheartedly. It's just that I don't know that our definition of what that looks like is the same. Okay? And so we're trying to get the scriptural understanding of that, and we've been doing that for 48 weeks. And that's a lot of time to spend trying to understand this very important concept and its relationship to the Torah. And Yeshua himself gives us what he calls the 2 great commands, and they're to love our Elohim and to love each other. Okay, so those are the frameworks of what love is, and the instruction on how to do that is obviously found in the Torah, in the instructions from above. And so, as we've been trying to understand all of this, where we know that the single understanding is Elohim is love. If we're becoming Elohim, then we're becoming love. Then it breaks down into 2 frameworks, loving Elohim and loving each other. Then those break down into lots of different ways that we can do things that express our love to him and our love to each other. That's what we've been trying to talk about for these 48 parts. So here we are in the book of Yaakov, the book of James, and I want to read verse 12 of chapter 1. It said, "Blessed is the man who does endure trial, for when he has been proved, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Master has promised to those who love him." Now we have a whole teaching just based on this verse, endure and receive the crown of life, and understanding where that all fits in. But he says here that this is promised to those who understand how to love him. Not just those who think they love him. Remember, we have those that said, "Lord, Lord," and he said, "You didn't have the relationship with me that you thought you did. I don't know you." So we have an endurance thing. We have trials that will come. It says, "Blessed is the man who endures trial," because we're going to have them. "For when he has been proved," and that teaching will cover and explain all of that, the endurance teaching, about how these trials are ways to test and see what your level of growth is. And when you've been proved through the fiery trial, the baptism of fire teaching would help with that as well, then you shall receive the crown of life. After you're enduring, after the trials, and after you're being proved. Again, people don't like the idea that you have to prove anything. After all, I made an altar call, I believe in Messiah, why do I have to prove anything? Well, because you have to prove yourself worthy of eternity. You didn't have to prove yourself worthy of him dying for you. You weren't worthy. Nobody was. But eternity is what we prove ourselves worthy for. The blessing, the reward, is conditional. The ability to have the reward was given to you free and unconditionally. That's the salvation part that Yeshua provided. If you don't understand that, go listen to the Are You Saved teaching. Now, so this is important, that the love thing is connected to the ultimate end that we're looking for. Enduring through life, life in itself is a trial. The whole idea of this physical life is to test us and to prove us, to see whether it's in our heart, Deuteronomy 8:2, to keep his commandments or not. There's a humbling process as well through that. And so then, if we go through this process and we have been proved, we can receive the crown of life. And this is because those who would go through this process correctly do it in something called love. We are those who love him. Now, we talked about over the 47 parts previous, at times we've talked about the idea of a love language and understanding what our Creator's love language is. And I think his love language is simply put, trust obedience. That's his love language. When you obey, but you obey because you trust him, because you believe what he says. So it's not just straightforward mechanical obedience. And so he says, these things are being offered, which the master has promised to those who have trust obedience, who demonstrate a lifetime. Now, by lifetime, I mean from the moment he opened your eyes, that part of your life. Who demonstrate a life from the moment of awakening of loving him through trust obedience. So that's our framework verse that we're going to understand why we're going to read much more of chapter 1 to understand what that verse is about. Now look at chapter 2 and verse 8. I'm going to give us some of these framework verses. If you truly accomplish the sovereign law according to the scripture, you shall love your neighbor as yourself, you do well. So in chapter 1, he talks about loving Elohim. Now in chapter 2, he's talking about loving your neighbor. So the two great commands are playing out here. And there's a whole lot more playing out here in Yaakov's letter, but we want to understand that it's connected to these key points. Enduring to receive the crown of life for those who love him. And he says here, you do well if you love your neighbor as yourself. Which, by the way, is a quote out of Leviticus. It didn't start here, this idea of loving neighbor. Okay? I believe it's 1917 or something like that. Now I'm going to look. I feel like I have to look it up. 18. I was off by one verse. Okay? 1918.